My guest was born in Detroit, single mom, third grade education. He ends up going to Yale, got his MD from University of Michigan. I went there for law school. He went there for medical school. He and his wife co-founded the Carson Scholars Fund, which recognizes young people who have exceptional academic and humanitarian accomplishments. Currently, it's operating in all 50 states. And for 30 years, he served as director of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Children's Center. Please welcome back to the program Dr. Benjamin Carson, Secretary of the Housing and Urban Development Agency. Doctor, thank you very much for taking the time.
Absolutely. I like the background there.
Doctor, when sometimes people come on, they say, just keep giving me the introduction for the whole 7-minute interview, and we'll call it a day. Doctor, what do you make of what's going on in our streets, these protests, these riots?
Well, unfortunately, the things that were done to that poor individual, Mr. Floyd, are things that should not be done to an animal. Mm-hmm. And that's enough to enrage anyone. So I understand the rage. But unfortunately, there are others who are hiding behind peaceful protesters who are not peaceful people at all. And I think that dishonors the man who died. It also dishonors Dr. Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. Who was an advocate for nonviolent protests and was able to bring about the greatest civic changes ever mm-hmm. in this country. And I don't know of any situation where violent, destructive protests have been helpful.
Dr. Carson, even Mr. Floyd's brother has made a statement and has said that my brother would not have been happy about this. And before George Floyd died, Dr. Carson, he had a Facebook post where he was talking about black-on-black crime and how he thought how hideous he thought it was, and that we need to get our arms around that.
And the black community really needs to start talking about that issue, because how many young black men are killed every weekend in Chicago, mm-hmm. but because it's black-on-black crime, we don't care about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about that the other day, Dr. Carson. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about what's going on in our streets is that, I grew up in the 50s and in the 60s. And, of course, there was the civil rights movement when blacks were denied basic civil rights. People were in the streets for that. There was a big controversy over the Vietnam War. People were in the streets for that. But this is about this perception, this belief that the police are literally going after black people and that there is institutional racism in our departments. And the evidence not only does not support that, but there's a lot of research that suggests, Dr. Carson, that police officers are more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger against a black suspect than a white suspect.
Well, the Ferguson effect is a real effect. Mm-hmm. The police pull back, more crime, more homicides. That hurts the black community. The rioting, the burning of things, that hurts the black community. So I hope that people are recognizing that they're being used for nefarious purposes. There is legitimate reason to reevaluate some of the things that go on with our justice system, mm-hmm. With policing. I think this is an opportunity to engage in a national conversation about it. Maybe a time to start advocating mandatory, body cams for all the police. Maybe it's time to have a national registry of police so that you can't be a rogue police in one city or one state and just they get you dismissed from there and you go somewhere else. If you're a rogue, you're going to be a rogue no matter where you are. We don't need to have those people policing. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things we really should start thinking about.
My guest is the Secretary of Health, of Housing and Human and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, how long do you think this is going to last? All 4 officers have now been charged. They haven't been charged with first-degree homicide, which I guess some of the protesters want, but all 4 of them have been charged. I guess all 4 of them are now behind bars. And there's state investigations, there's local investigations, and there's a federal investigation. What more is it that the protesters want the authorities to do?
I don't know. Mm-hmm. I really don't know. What else do they want? Mm-hmm. I know the people who are hiding behind them they want to cause as much chaos and destruction as they possibly can. But in terms of the legitimate people who are protesting peacefully, I'm not sure what else they want. Mm-hmm. I hope some reporter will go on the street and ask them, what more do you want?
Dr. Carson, we have about 90 seconds left. Tell me, are you enjoying the job?
Yes, I have some very wonderful people to work with, mm-hmm. and we're making some very good progress, particularly on the homelessness front and on the affordable housing front. You know, it's just a matter of working with some of these localities to remove some of the barriers. We have multiple agencies being involved. And, you know, I don't care about credit or legacy. I just want to solve this problem. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Carson, all of a sudden the concern about social distancing and wearing face masks appears to have gone away.
Isn't that interesting?
Amazing.
Yeah, you can go out and riot and you can protest, but you can't go to church.
Dr. Ben Carson, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Dr. Carson, as always, thank you very much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. You got it. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Eric Holder says attitudes that enabled Americans to enslave blacks are still implicit today. What does that mean? Raise your hand if you ever owned any slaves. Raise your hand if you've ever been a slave. Raise your hand if your parents owned slaves. Your grandparents owned slaves. I'm Larry Elder.
Share excerpts of today's show from Larry Elder's YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio and click on the subscribe button.